My parents hid my life-threatening illness until it was too late. Now they're begging me not to tell my siblings, but I refuse to keep their secret. I, 28F, recently found out I have a serious hereditary illness that's going to screw up my life, and I am so mad I can barely type this out. It's a degenerative illness. No cure, nothing. My body's just gonna slowly get worse. And the kicker? My parents have known this could happen my whole life and never said a damn word. This illness runs in my family. My dad's mom had it. His sister, my aunt, died from it a few years ago. I was living overseas when she passed, and my parents told me it was cancer. Cancer. They lied right to my face. It wasn't until I got diagnosed that they finally came clean and admitted she had the same illness I do. When I confronted them, my dad wouldn't even give me a straight answer. I asked if he had it too, and he dodged every single question, acting like I was overreacting. My mom, on the other hand, tried to justify it by saying they didn't want me living in fear. Are you kidding me? I could have been prepared. Instead, they chose to let me walk into this blind. And here's where it gets worse. I have a 2-year-old son. My child might have this, and they never told me I was at risk. I could have had him tested, made informed decisions, anything. But no, they took that from me. And now I live in constant fear for him too. Then my mom had the nerve to ask me if I would have rather not been born than deal with this. Can you believe that? She turned it around on me, like I'm the monster for even thinking it. And you know what? Yes, I said it. Yes, I would rather not have been born than deal with this disease. They made a selfish choice, and now I'm paying for it. They knew the risks and did it anyway, for themselves. They wanted kids, and now I'm stuck with this. I called them selfish, and I meant every word. Now, they're begging me not to tell my younger siblings. They don't know about this yet, haven't been tested, and my parents want to keep it that way. They're hoping they'll get lucky, but I'm not going to lie to them. I refuse to let them be blindsided like I was. They deserve to know the truth. I've gone low contact with my parents. I can't stand to even think about them right now. My mom keeps trying to guilt trip me, saying they were just trying to protect me. Protect me from what? The truth? No, they weren't protecting me. They were protecting themselves. From the guilt of knowing they passed this on, and now they want me to protect them too. But I won't. I love my son and my siblings too much to lie to them. Atia for going LC and refusing to keep their secret, even though they claim they were just trying to protect me? Update 1. I ended up telling my siblings. I couldn't just sit on this and let them be in the dark like I was. They're both younger than me, still in their early 20s, and I felt like I owed it to them to give them a chance to get ahead of this, to be prepared. My parents, of course, completely freaked out when they found out. My dad refused to speak to me for a while, and my mom kept texting me these long, guilt-trippy messages, telling me how I've ruined the family and that I've put ideas in my siblings' heads, as if telling them the truth was somehow the same as convincing them they have the illness. I tried to keep it straightforward with my siblings. I told them that I'd been diagnosed with this degenerative illness that runs in our family, the same illness that killed our aunt, the same illness that our parents kept from us. I explained that they should get tested, that this is something they need to be aware of because, unlike me, they have the opportunity to prepare and make informed choices. My brother was shocked but seemed to take it better than my sister. He's the kind of person who compartmentalizes things, I think, so he thanked me for telling him and said he'd look into it. I haven't heard much from him since, though. I'm hoping he's taking steps to get tested, but honestly, I have no idea what's going on in his head right now. My sister, on the other hand, completely broke down. She started crying as soon as I told her, and I could tell she felt betrayed, just like I did when I first found out. It was like watching my own reaction play out all over again, which made it even harder. She kept asking why our parents didn't tell us, why they lied, how they could have kept something so serious from us for all these years. I didn't have any answers for her, and it was painful to see her going through the same emotions I went through, especially because she's always been the closest to our parents. I think this shattered something in her, something fundamental about the way she saw them, and I can't blame her for that. After I told them, I went low contact with my parents for a while, but my mom wouldn't leave me alone. She just kept sending me messages trying to guilt me into keeping this quiet. She said things like, "We were only trying to protect you, and you don't understand how hard it was for us." But I can't help but feel like those are excuses. Like they're just trying to protect themselves from the consequences of their choices. They made the decision to have kids knowing this illness was a possibility, and they made the decision to keep us in the dark, to lie about it, to rob us of the chance to make informed choices about our own lives. And now they want me to help them cover it up, to keep my siblings in the same ignorance I was in. I just can't do that. The breaking point came when my mom showed up at my house unannounced one day. I hadn't been answering her calls or texts, so she must have decided that cornering me in person was her best option. She started in on the same old arguments, telling me that I had no right to tell my siblings, that I was making this worse than it needed to be, that they might not even have the illness, so there was no reason to worry them. I was trying to stay calm, but I lost it when she brought up my son. She said, "What if he doesn't have it? Are you going to ruin his childhood by making him live in fear like you are?" That just hit me wrong in every possible way. First of all, I'm not ruining my son's childhood. I'm trying to protect him. I'm making sure he's tested, making sure I know what's going on with his health so that we can deal with it if it becomes an issue. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand like my parents did. I refuse to make the same mistake they did. And second, what kind of argument is that? Ignorance isn't protection. If my son has this illness, I need to know, and so does he. I'm not going to let him stumble into this blind like I did. I told her as much, and she started crying, which, I'm ashamed to say, didn't affect me as much as it used to. I think I've become numb to her manipulation at this point. She accused me of trying to hurt her, of punishing her and my dad for decisions they made decades ago, decisions they made, according to her, out of love. She kept saying, "We didn't want to hurt you. We just didn't want you to live your whole life in fear." And maybe I could have understood that if they had been upfront about it from the beginning, if they had told me about the risk when I was old enough to understand but still young enough to plan. But they didn't. They waited until I was already dealing with this illness myself, already a parent, already scared for my own child's future. I finally told her that I needed space, that I couldn't keep having these conversations with her if she wasn't going to take any responsibility for the way they handled this. I wasn't going to play the role of the dutiful daughter anymore, quietly accepting their decisions and cleaning up the mess they made. I said I wasn't going to lie to my siblings, and that was final. She left in tears, and honestly, I felt exhausted more than anything. In the days after, I spoke to my siblings again. My sister, after some time to process, had made an appointment to get tested, and I was proud of her for taking control of the situation. My brother, though, was more hesitant. He's the kind of person who doesn't like to deal with things head-on, and I could tell he was hoping this would all blow over, that maybe if he didn't get tested, he wouldn't have to think about it. I didn't push him, but I made it clear that it was his choice, and whatever he decided, I would support him. It's been a whirlwind of emotions, but I'm doing my best to stay strong, especially for my son. Right now, my focus is on his future and making sure I give him the best shot at a healthy life. As for my parents, I don't know where things will go from here. I'm not sure I can ever fully forgive them, but I'm trying to figure out how to move forward without letting their choices define my life or my relationships with my siblings. I've learned the hard way that sometimes protecting the people you love means telling them the truth, no matter how painful it is. Update 2. Things have only gotten more complicated since my last update. I've officially gone no contact with my parents. I thought the low contact would give us all some space to cool off, but it seems like my mom has doubled down on her guilt tripping. She sent me this long, rambling email about how I'm tearing the family apart and how I owe them some sort of respect because they're my parents. But honestly, I'm just over it. I'm done playing the part of the obedient daughter who tiptoes around their feelings while mine are completely ignored. It's clear that they're never going to take responsibility for what they did, so I'm taking responsibility for my own life and setting boundaries. It's hard, and I won't pretend it doesn't hurt. But I've got too much to deal with already to keep letting them manipulate me. The thing is, I thought this would be a simple decision. Cutting them off, I mean. I thought I'd feel relief, that I'd finally be free from their influence, but it's not that easy. I can't stop thinking about my son and how this is going to affect him. He's only 2, so he doesn't understand any of this yet. But eventually he's going to grow up, and I know he'll ask about his grandparents. I've been going back and forth on whether I should let them have any contact with him at all, but right now the answer is no. I don't trust them, to be honest with him, and I don't want him to grow up in an environment where lying and sweeping things under the rug is normalized. Maybe one day, when he's old enough to understand everything, I'll reconsider. But for now, I'm keeping my distance. Meanwhile, I've been trying to help my sister through all of this. She finally got her test results back, and she's positive for the illness. It was devastating to hear, and she's been struggling with the reality of what that means for her future. We've had long, tearful phone calls where she's vented about how angry she is at our parents, how scared she is for what's to come, and how unfair it all feels. I get it. I've been there. I'm still there. I told her it's okay to be angry and it's okay to feel betrayed, but that we have to focus on what we can control now. The illness is unpredictable. Some people progress quickly, others don't show symptoms for years. There's no way of knowing for sure, and that uncertainty is the hardest part to live with. I've been encouraging her to see a therapist because, honestly, I wouldn't have gotten this far without mine. She's resistant to the idea, though. She thinks talking to a professional would make it all feel more real, like once she says it out loud, it'll solidify her diagnosis in a way she's not ready to deal with yet. I can't push her too hard, but I'm trying to be there for her in every way I can, even if it's just listening and letting her cry when she needs to. The hardest part for me is watching her go through the same emotional spiral I went through. It's like seeing myself from the outside, and it makes me even angrier at our parents for putting us in this position. On top of that, my brother still hasn't gotten tested. He's been avoiding the topic whenever I bring it up, and I'm not sure if he's just in denial or if he's genuinely afraid of finding out. I don't blame him, really. The idea of knowing you have this illness hanging over your head is terrifying, but I also know that not knowing isn't going to make it go away. He told me once that he's not ready to deal with it yet. And I get that. I really do. But I can't help but worry about him. I want him to have the chance to make informed decisions about his future, especially since he's been talking about wanting kids someday. I don't want him to go into that blind like I did. I've told him that I'll support him no matter what he decides, but it's hard not to feel helpless when I see him pulling away from the situation. As for me, I've been trying to focus on my own health and my son's. I finally had him tested, and the relief I felt when the results came back negative was indescribable. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but at the same time, it's bittersweet because I know I'm still living with this illness. And so is my sister. I'm grateful that my son won't have to go through this, but it's hard not to feel guilty too. Like I somehow got lucky in this one area while my sister didn't. Survivor's guilt, I guess. I've been talking to my therapist about it, and she's helped me understand that it's okay to feel a mix of emotions, that relief and guilt can coexist, and that I don't have to apologize for the fact that my son is healthy. But it's still tough to process. I've also been thinking a lot about what kind of future I want for myself and for my family. I don't know what my health is going to look like in 5, 10, or 20 years, and that uncertainty is terrifying. But I'm trying to focus on what I can control, which means getting as much done now as possible. I've started looking into long-term care plans, even though it feels strange to be doing that at 28. I don't want to wait until things get worse to start thinking about the future. I've also been working on getting my financial affairs in order, which is another thing I never thought I'd have to do this early in life. But it's necessary, and it gives me a small sense of control over something in this whole mess. In the middle of all this, my husband has been incredible. I don't know what I would do without him. He's been my rock through everything, taking care of our son when I'm too tired, holding me when I break down, and reminding me that we're in this together. There were moments when I was first diagnosed that I wondered if this would break us. if the stress and the fear would be too much for him to handle. But he's proven me wrong every step of the way, and I'm so grateful for that. I don't tell him enough, but I need to start. If this illness has taught me anything, it's that you can't take the people you love for granted, and I never want to make that mistake with him. At the end of the day, I'm still angry at my parents, and I think I'll be angry for a long time, but I'm learning to focus that anger in more productive ways, like making sure my son and my siblings have the information they need and taking control of my own future as much as I can. I don't know if I'll ever forgive my parents, but right now, forgiveness isn't even on my radar. What matters to me is protecting my family from the kind of lies and betrayal I had to endure, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.